Caron, my man, it has been a minute. I got to check in. I have to check in. How is everything with you? How's everything with the fam? Man, take your time. Bring me up to date. What's good?
Everything's good. The most recent news, which I'm just super proud to share, is my daughter graduated from the University of Howard.
Oh,
The
awesome.
real. So yeah, I'm excited about that. That's amazing.
Dude, tell me about her. What's her deal? What is she into? What is she going to do? Tell me all about it.
Yeah, she's always been someone that's fell in love with imaging and videography, and she's leaned into that space. She went to school to Chad Boswick Theater School of Fine Arts there at Howard. She graduated with honors, and now she's ready to pivot into grad school as well from a PR marketing standpoint. But she also is going to work at Hilltop Newspaper and help with the creative content.
Dude, how proud of you? How proud are you of her? That's amazing. Like, did you push her really hard? Is she just kind of built for it and wired for it? How did that come to be?
There's nothing mediocre in this household. For all five, four girls, one son. He's playing over in the Nigerian BAL league. He's doing a great job as well. My other daughter is working in dispatch and distribution, import export. So, even with the tariffs and everything, she's getting a wealth of knowledge and experience through that process. So, I got some amazing kids, and then my baby girl is, up and coming. She's on the AAU circuit. I'm in the process of headed to New Orleans now to, advocate and push her, and she's a light, man. She's special.
All right, man, there's so many good things in that. I love that there's, quote, no mediocrity in this house. My wife and I go back and forth. We have a son who's 25 who's doing great. We have a son who's 20 who's also doing great, but they're all different, right? So I would try and push them hard and kind of bad cop them. And my wife would say, don't be so hard on them. I don't want them to resent you. I'm like, look, this is what we signed up for. We are not their best friends. We have to raise them up. The world is nasty, and if we're not doing that, we're not getting them ready. So now they don't resent me, and well, the little one maybe, the younger one maybe, but the older one does not. He's doing great. So it's always kind of a tough thing as a parent. So the one who's playing AAU, how is that, dude? How hard do you push her, and what's that experience like?
You know what? It's all self-driven. She asks us a lot of questions. She's super inquisitive, and that's what I love about it. Is that she was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes at the age of 8 years old, and she's just super resilient from that moment. And she just really just kind of gravitated to the game of basketball. Obviously because I'm in that space, but also just because she just loved the X and O's and the competition of it. Going out there and showing your best versus the competition. And she's just been thriving in that space. And I'm just shocked about, her player development and her skill set and how fast she's been able to develop. And she's going into the ninth grade this upcoming season.
Hey, Karan, I got a really important question for you. I always talk about this, nature, nurture, nature, nurture. So she obviously is tough. She obviously has some of that tough juice. But listen, you came up differently. These kids came up a lot different than you came up. And my concern always about my boys was if we lived on the big house on the hill, they would not have that incentive, man. They would not have that drive. What about your kids? How did you manage that? Because they didn't come up like you came up, but you want them to be tough and you want them to be motivated.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of non-negotiables, particularly in our household, where obviously faith, family, but it's also too just creating a path for yourself. Not resting on the legacy whole situation or anything like that. It's just like, look, I have all these tools, I have all these things, and Dad, we kind of was hindered when it started from us, from the neighborhood and, grinding and going through the process with trial and error. But now, these kids in our household, had access to so much information and so much, backing and a network and a village of people that's willing to push them and move them forward. So, you have to do more. And, I think the expectations is a lot, but it's something that they, all have accepted with open arms. And they, even though we have a lot, we come from humble beginnings, and they always respect that.
It seems to me also, I've always said to them, look, I'm not going to live vicariously through you. Things worked out pretty well for me. This is your life. This is your journey. I will support you as long as you give it what you have. I mean, whatever you end up is where you end up, but you have your journey. But I'm not living vicariously through you, man. It's your life. You got to own it. You have to do your thing. Caron, your deal, you and I have spoken over the years so many times, so I don't want this to be redundant, but when we talk about what we're talking about, I think people need to understand your kids have all these great opportunities, but you hold them accountable. But my guy, dude, your life on and off the floor is absolutely incredible. If we could backtrack, how did you go from being arrested 15 times, maybe, by the age of 15 to playing 14 years in the NBA? I mean, we could talk for hours about that, but how did you turn your life around?
I think that it started first and foremost from up top. I really do feel like I was extremely blessed from the beginning. All those things that I went through, those terrible things, and the decisions that I made was, part of the whole, the vision, for my ultimate purpose. And I had strong individuals around me with my mother and grandmother, the first women in my life that I ever loved, that taught me how to be a man, that taught me how to, value faith, taught me the value of family, taught me about, the responsibility of, going out and being a better version of yourself and executing, some of the visions and dreams that you have in your head. So that really was, the end all be all, connecting to my purpose, connecting with my faith, and just not wanting to disappoint the women that poured so much life into me. I felt like I was a huge disappointment for quite a period of time. And I just wanted them to, really, see the whole thing, that's coming to fruition, with all the sacrifice and all the sweat equity that they put into me. And, hopefully I made them proud. I know my mom is retired. My grandmother retired early. And I'm just able to, pour into them just like they poured into me so long ago.
It's got to feel so good. It's got to be the best feeling in the world. Let me ask you this. They never gave up on you, and then you were able to get through it. But let me ask you, on the way up, was your first love always hooping, or maybe was your first love the streets and the hustle?
Yeah, I get asked that all the time. My first love was always, my mother and grandmother. And, I think I was intrigued by the streets only because of the decisions and what I was presented with. It was either this or that. And I was intrigued by the possibilities of the streets until I saw the outcome of the streets, in real time, people being subtracted from earth right in front of your eyes, and, myself in and out of corrections, and ultimately going to corrections for 18 months and going through that whole process. And, before, mental health was a thing, and, going to someone to get the proper rehab and the tools that you need to perform at a high level in society, I had to rehabilitate myself. I had to find out what was the demons and some of the vices that, took me down the path of destruction. And luckily, I was able to recover from that. And when I came out, I executed a plan, and doors and opportunities just continue to help open up by the grace of God. And, I'm here today.
Caron, I don't know if you saw it, but there was a piece that dropped in the Players Tribune today about Jair Alexander, NFL player, talking about mental health. And he was talking about how he played for the Packers. Great player, great player, Pro Bowl player. And then, it's such a ruthless league that when he lost it, they cut him. And he had no idea. He saw it coming because he kept asking, where's the iPad? Where's the iPad? I want to watch film. And they're like, oh, yeah, we'll get that to you. We'll get that to you. And then they never did. And he's like, damn, I don't think they want me. So he starts to prepare himself, and you think you're ready for it, but you're not. And then it happens, and then you don't know how to cope, and then you go someplace else, and you're still not right. He was overcoming an injury, and then he had one of his worst games ever, and he's tripping. It's like, I let everybody down. I let me down. I let my teammates down. I let my friends down, and he's got these mental health issues. But this is in 2026 where we kind of know now it's okay not to be okay, even though he really struggled. I'm curious, you had to fix yourself. You had to fix yourself back at a time when it was taboo and people did not talk about this. How did you do that?
Through, I would have to say, and it is the first time I ever talked about this, Joe. I'm glad you asked this. It's like I had to do it in real time. And, when we did player appearances in the NBA, basketball, Reading Without Borders, Basketball Without Borders, all these different things, giving back NBA Cares, I was going through my process of rehabilitation that entire time. I was getting back in front of communities and in front of people and exercising my right to just be vulnerable. I was having real conversations. I always cried. I always shed emotion, when I spoke about my truth passionately. And everybody's like, "Damn, why you always crying like in public?" I'm just like, "Hey, bro, it's putting me in this place where it's like rehabilitating and I'm vulnerable and I'm actually seeing myself in the individuals that I'm talking to and I'm helping them in real time." And that was my process. And it was years, I'm talking about the public speaking, where not until 2014, 15, where I stopped crying. This is in public as I'm talking to people. And then I got to a point where I was like stern and my voice carried and I was able to be in front of a lot of people and talk and tell my truth, without being so vulnerable because I was actually going through the process of recovering during that. And that's why I always loved doing public speaking engagements with kids and telling my truth, telling my story, with no lack of empathy and just being transparent. And that was my process of, over years, just recovering and addressing my trauma. And that was the way that I got through it.
Hey, man, that took a lot of courage. That took a lot of courage, especially at that time. And I want to be very clear about this. I think most people watching this or listening to this know what you're about. You're a tough motherfucker, man. I mean, this is not like, oh, man, this dude is so emotional. This dude's so vulnerable. That took a lot, man. That took a lot. You are a tough man. So to do that, that's how you did that. And that could not have been easy. You were well ahead of your time. So basketball, where did basketball come in? When did you first then really fall in love with the game?
Basketball saved my life so many times that I had a pager on me and I'm hooping at Stephen Bull. I'm hooping at one of the rec parks at one of the community centers. And I've got the pages and things like that. I left my pager on the bleachers because I'm playing basketball. And
Yo, Caron, was it one of those two-way pagers, that big silver brick?
No, it wasn't even the two-way then. It was
okay.
the clear pages that light
I got you.
Up,
okay.
Ones we had today. But, going through that whole process and all of a sudden seeing, somebody that got that page went to this location and lost their life or something like that. It was just like, that could have easily been me, but I was playing basketball. And then so many other times where people that I was hanging around with, because of traveling basketball, the Bray Center got sponsored by Nike, one of the first, because there's so many Nike teams now, but it was just one Nike team in the entire state that had sponsorship. And we was traveling on this team, and I was fortunate enough to get on this team, be one of the top players in the state. And it removed me out of the 4-mile radius, north, south, east, and west, out of Racine, Wisconsin. And that saved my life because that entire summer I was gone, 4 or 5 friends got murdered, all in the proximity of my circle. So basketball really took me out of this. And it really changed my life, and it gave me a different perspective and observation outside of this 4-mile radius of Racine, Wisconsin.
That's incredible. Listen, I'm not trying to be salacious in any way, but when you were inside, while you were inside, what was prison ball like, and what were you playing for specifically at that time? Like, what were those games like?
Yeah, it was crazy. It was extremely physical. Obviously, no fouls. It was also, more of a cliquey game. It usually was. I know people familiar with the gangs and stuff, but it was usually the Latin Kings, the Vice Lords, and the GDs. Everybody played as a team. The GDs had their 5 that they always rolled out and won games. The BDs, the Black Disciples, the Latin Kings, and then the Vice Lords, and that's how the games was played and competed. And if you was able to run the court, you was playing for Canteen, and the Canteen consisted of Little Debbie cakes, 6 packs of sodas and juices and things like that, and oodles and noodles and things, all that stuff, noodles in the cup. So if you was able to run it up, you can easily come up on, $80, $90 of, noodles for the day if you just ran the court for the day. So that's what people was fighting and battling for. But also too, people was fighting for, reputations, for your set and where you was from.
I was gonna say, dude, like that shit sounds like gold. That sounds like gold on the inside. But what was more important, that or pride? Like, for instance, if you were that guy, were you pretty much safe? Were you like, hey man, no one's jacking with that guy. No one's jacking with him.
I,
He's got that kind of game.
I think if you was that guy, you was part of the problem
Huh.
because obviously if you're the guy and you making this set look a certain way or you
Right.
guys winning, it was a lot of times where people slid things in my cell or stuff like that to try to get me solitary confinement time and things like that to get me out of general population for quite some time because I was winning and doing a lot of good
They were
things.
setting you up, dude, because you were running everybody off the floor.
They was trying to get me. They was trying to get me, but I was good.
You were you were good, man. You were good. So how about that mentality? So you got to develop a certain mentality. When you get out and you're on the other side, you're starting to put your life back together, and Jim Calhoun's coming around. Like, did that transfer over to college ball, the Big East, the NBA? Did that stay with you, that mentality?
Yeah, the mentality, the physicality. Like I just always been hungry. I always been a guy that recognize what I come from. My family come from Columbus, Mississippi. We come from the South. We migrated up north. We come to Racine. They working at factory jobs at JIK's assembly lines, 15 hours, days, and, getting paid bare minimum. And I had this respect for the grind always, and I still do. And it was just instilled in me. It's part of the fabric of my DNA. So I just always had that with me, that edge.
So when Jim Calhoun came to Racine to recruit you, what do you remember about that, and how did the neighborhood react?
It was crazy because we're a small community, but Jim Calhoun came to the hood.
Yeah, he did.
He pulled up. He pulled up to the Shabazz Center, and I'll never forget. He came in and he wanted to see what Racine was all about, and I believe he tells this story all the time. But someone that came up to him and it said, if you give that kid an opportunity, you're going to change his life. One, and he's going to be a pro. Like he's going to be a lottery pick. But if he don't go to you because he need a stern coach, somebody that's going to challenge him daily, you might as well say goodbye to that kid life. And what we mean is, either he's going to be in corrections for the rest of his life or somebody's going to take his life in these streets, because that's how important this decision is for him and you taking him or him staying here. And that was it. Calhoun was like, hey, somebody told me this and I just want to meet your mom and your grandmother. And after he gave his whole UConn spiel about me being family for life and the commitment he was making to me, they said, you going with him.
Well, bro, dude, can you imagine if you don't make that decision? If you don't make that decision, we're not having this conversation. So you go there and you're a Big East Co-Player of the Year. Was that your decision? Was that your mom's decision? Was that your grandma's decision? Did you all decide that together?
I thought it was my decision, but it was 100% my mom and grandmother's decision to go to Connecticut after they heard him talk and just the things that he was saying. Because a lot of other people, I know the NIL thing is crazy now, but a lot of other people was coming in with a different angle. And if you can be bought, you can be sold. And he didn't come in with that angle. He came in with, this is about family. This is about this. This is about the principles that I'm going to instill in you to be a better version of yourself someday, one day. And I'm going to always be in your corner. And I'm always going to have my hands on your life and help shaping your life and everything to the T. He committed to me. He did. And he's still doing it till this day. I just had
That's
with him
great. Go ahead and finish that thought. That's great.
Yeah, I just had dinner with him a couple months ago in Miami. You know what I mean? Like we had a great dinner. We was talking about family and just so many things. I speak with him at least once a month, checking in on him. Like we have a unique relationship.
So, Caron, what about you? I mean, UConn family, Dan Hurley. He's not for everybody. I love the dude. I love this dude. He's one of my favorite guys. He turned out an offer to coach the Lakers a few years back. Should he get another NBA opportunity, do you think that his style would work? Do you think that his energy would work in the pros?
I think his energy will work anywhere because he's a he's a player's coach. I think he has a unique way of reading a room, reading the situation, and knowing exactly what to do in those moments. I think that he's been a great leader for our university and our culture at the University of Connecticut. And I think if he wants to pivot and go into that space, he'd do great.
All right, so in a year where nearly 1/3 of the league was clearly tanking, the Godfather Pat Riley said of the Heat, man, as long as I'm here, we're never doing that. We're never doing that. That's not who I am. That's not who we are. We will never, ever, ever do that. Problem is, the shit worked for some teams. Do you feel as strongly about that as Pat does?
100%. I love the fact that, every time, there's a game, we go out with every intention on competing at its highest level and going out there and winning the game. We had a lot of highs and a lot of lows this past season. We had injuries with, one of our all-star players in Tyler Hero. We had a significant time missed by Bam. We had some unfortunate injuries from Norman Powell in his all-star year. Nikola Jokic, his injuries. We had some significant injuries, and we can never get, our real cast is out there for an extended period of time to compete like we wanted to. But, we don't want to make any excuses from that standpoint. It was a lot of player development that took place. A lot of guys stepped up in a major way. Jaime Jaquez could have easily been sixth man of the year. Pella Larson, who had a career year as well. Guys just really so Khalil Ware and what he's done, being one of the new young bright stars of the association. So we had a lot of progress, from a lot of guys.
So, Caron, where are you at in this basketball season, basketball chapter? You've been there 6 years as an assistant coach. Like, where's your mind at? Do you want to be an NBA head coach? Would you be a college head coach? I know you're good with the entrepreneurial life because you have a lot of investments. Like, where's your head at these days? What do you want to do? What's your next thing look like?
100%. I want to be a head coach at the collegiate level, preferably at the NBA level. But I want an opportunity to, just, be a captain of your ship. I've been in basketball school, as you touched on, for the last 6 years with the guidance of the Godfather himself, Coach Spo, who's one of the greatest coaches ever to coach this game. I've been in proximity of some super knowledgeable people, and Malik Allen, Chris Quinn, Eric Glass, Wayne Ellington as well, and so many others. And, you're just constantly learning and relearning things. And, when you have great talent and when you have great information at your fingertips, along with the experience of playing in the association for over 14 years. And as you touched on, off the court, on the court, being successful and having those experiences, you want to, kind of put your own thing together and, see, let the chips fall where they may.
All right, so I can see you doing this 100%. Has the phone been ringing? Have you had calls? Have you had opportunities? Where does it stand?
My agent have reached out to a couple folks. Folks reached back out to us as well. I would love to get more involved in the interview process and, show, my style of play and my angle and some of my philosophies and what I'm looking forward to doing offensively, defensively, some of the messaging from top to bottom, with ownership, and share their interest in what they're trying to do and what they're trying to get accomplished and how we can scale the organization. So I'm looking forward to all that.
We always talk about it, man. It's fit and situation. Listen, before you go, you and I have talked in the past, but it's amazing to me how tight you and Kobe Bryant were, despite the fact you only played 1 year together. Only 1 year together, and knowing the Mamba a little bit, obviously not like you knew him, but he and I would hang out once in a while here in Orange County. He kept his circle extremely tight. Why do you think the two of you bonded as quickly as you did and were as tight as you were?
I was telling Coach Spo this, I think this past season, I'm almost like a basketball firefighter. When I see problems, when I see chaos, when I see things that people are running from their life for, I usually run towards it. And I heard all the stories of, Kobe before I got there and how tough he was, and his disposition is just crazy. But that was the first thing I wanted to do was, figure it out and find out for myself. And when I came to him and said, hey, man, I want to be your shadow. I want to follow you, learn as much as possible, be a student, be a little brother. Respectfully, though, I will compete all the time against you because I want to, everybody wants to, compete against the best. And he just welcomed me with open arms. It went from that to, blackout sessions, early morning workouts, late night workouts. It went from arriving in every city that we played in, playing in private gyms, practicing in private gyms, and went to spending a lot of time off the court with each other, him coming to my house, me going to his birthday parties with our kids, and a lifelong friendship. So I learned so much from him, just from the details of the game, to advantages, the angles on the court, to regions on how to score, back to the basket, advantage attacks, all those different things. And I love sharing it with, these up and coming rising stars in a game that's searching for knowledge like I once was.
Dude, how would you describe the blackout sessions? What were those like?
It was exactly what it was. It was blackouts.
Literally, like actually?
Working out till you see spots. Because you would go through the process of, training at a modest rate, and then all of a sudden doing things at game speed, and then recovery time for 3 hours, and then coming back and, making anywhere from 500 to 750 shots with contested people jumping at you and doing that. And this is way before you had, internships and stuff like that, with guys coming into the gym and working for organizations now and helping out and, trying to, get in on staff. Kobe had this thing figured out a long time ago.
So, dude, who else was on that team, or who were your peers that could keep up in those sessions? Like, was it just you two guys? Was anybody else invited? Who could keep up with that?
When I was there, it was just me and Kobe. It was always just me and Kobe. When I left, I heard he did it with other guys, and I heard he did it before I came there with Fisher. Ronnie Terioff had spent a lot of time with him as well. But it was literally like, even going to his book, the Mamba Mentality and stuff like that, you can read it. It was probably just a handful of guys he ever spent that much time with.
But so I'm gonna let you go in 1 second. So you've lost a lot of people, man. You mentioned this when you were young. You lost a lot of people, and you just have. You've gone through that. How often do you think about the Mamba? Do you miss him?
I miss him dearly. I think about him every day. I think about some of the things that we had talked about at the last dinner that we had together, and he was talking about this basketball.
Excuse me, where was that? Where was the last dinner?
We was at a Capitol Grill.
Yeah.
In Sacramento, and we was talking about this basketball world that he was building, and he was talking about, female women's basketball, and he was talking about content creating, and he was talking about telling stories in a different way, in a different format, and he was really intrigued by what's the Harry Potter thing. And he was like, man, I want to do it from this type of angle and all this stuff. And he was just like breaking it down. And he was like, man, you ought to do this, you ought to do that. And we were just bouncing ideas off each other. And he said, man, he told me that evening, I'll never forget this. He's like, man, you'd be a great coach, man. You'd be a great coach, man. You just got mentor like all over you. Every time you talk, like you just have mentor all over you. And that really just like tilted my interest, because I was already doing television, and I was already in that space. And once Coach Spo and the Godfather reached out and created this opportunity for me to be on the bench, I was just like, I have to do this. Like, something is telling me that this is him in a mysterious way sending this energy my way, and I just jumped on that opportunity.
Oh, dude, that's some universe shit. That is so cool. That is so cool. Hey, listen, really quickly, this is not new news, and I'm not breaking this story, but I had dinner with him one night, and he was going on about Michael Jackson and how much he learned from Michael Jackson. We weren't talking about Michael Jordan. We weren't talking about ball. He was just going on and on about how much he studied Michael Jackson and how much he learned from him. Like, oh, gee, man, that dude was different. Mike was, or Kobe was different, right? Just different.
100%. 100%. And if he saw something that you did better than him or different than him, like he would literally ask you in real time, do that again. He had a memory that was like no other. Like if you did a counter move that he just loved and wanted it added to whatever he already had, his arsenal of moves, the most skilled player ever, like he would be like, all right, like do that again. Let me see that. And then he'll just add it so quickly, like plug and play to his ensemble of moves.
I promise. The last thing I need to know this from you because your background, I don't understand it. I've spent my entire life trying to understand this. This is a dude who came up, whose dad played pro ball. He was in Italy. He had all the advantages, but this dude was fiercer and hungrier than everybody. He didn't need to fight his way out. Where did that come from?
I can't put my finger on it, but I will say this, and I think I've said this before about him is. When God made him, he threw away the mold, man. Like it's sometimes you see some rare breeds of individuals that's just driven like no other. And they're sent here specifically. Their purpose is specifically to inspire others to have that same type of engine and that motor. Nothing about Kobe process was mediocre. And when you talk about, the on the court stuff, off the court stuff, and how he just remained relentless in everything. It was a reason why you fell in love with him, you hated him, and then you fell back in love with him. And then when he was gone away from the game of basketball, you was just so happy to see him in that breath of fresh air in a different light. And when he tragically left us, his void and his name is always remembered, but his void is forever felt. So it just, it speaks volume to what he's done in his short time when he was here with us on Earth. Was just, second to none.
Everything you said, it seems to me too, even when he left basketball and he tried other things like content and building a basketball empire with the ladies, the standard, man, the standard is the standard. He did not deviate. He did not deviate. The standard was the standard above feelings and all things. Caron, listen, I appreciate you so much. I appreciate the friendship over the years. I appreciate getting caught up. I can't wait for you to get your own program so I can watch what you can do because Kobe saw that in you early, man. And I can understand, man, if Kobe Bryant ever said something like that to me, that would stay with me. So I know you'll fulfill that. I know you'll make good on that.
100%. I won't stop until I do.
I know it. Appreciate you, man. Thank you so much. You're the best.
Respect, brother.
Okay, man.